Hello, and welcome back to my video series on how to use Google SketchUp. In today's lesson, we'll learn how to define model parameters, learn how to use the selection and line tools, and finally make a 2D sketch of a rectangle using the line tool.
Okay, so picking up where we last left off, we're going to go ahead and start learning some of the other tools inside the workspace and start going ahead and sketching and modeling some objects inside the space. So the next thing that we want to do is go over to the right-hand panel again, and then we're going to go down to this one button that says Model Information, and we're going to go ahead and click it. And it gives us this model information panel where we can change the different parameters that kind of set up and define our space. Out of just my own personal preference, we're going to be using we're going to use metric units. So we'll go down here where it says format, and then we'll choose the one that says 0.0 mm, which is just for using units in millimeters. Once you are more comfortable, you can switch this to other units that you're more comfortable with, but personally I just like the millimeters to work with. So we'll go ahead and select this, and then we can just leave the precision. We can set it as 0.00, which is something that you'd be, if we are going to use a 3D printer to, let's say, print something. Usually this is like one of the higher resolutions that we use on 3D printers, so this one is fine. And we can leave everything else the same for right now. So we go up down here where it says X, and we just click it, and it'll go away. And then now basically anything that we draw inside this environment now will basically be in units of millimeters. So next thing that we can do is we can actually say goodbye to our that person right there. So we'll go ahead and select this tool up here. This is the selection tool at the very top of the left panel right here, and this basically allows us to select any objects that we've already created, and then we can kind of manipulate them in new ways. So for our purposes, we can kind of get rid of this person right here. So we go over and select it, and then we can hit delete on the keyboard, and it'll kind of remove it for us. The next thing that we want to do is we'll go ahead and grab this tool down here. It's the fourth one down on the left-hand side, which is the line tool. And what this does, it basically creates straight lines for us, and it's kind of like a pencil shape. So we can go ahead and just select it, and then we can select this top one up here. And what we can see now is our cursor now is in the shape of like a red pencil, and it allows us to basically start drawing lines that will define certain planes or faces, and then we take a collection of planes or faces to build up a 3D object. So if we go back to that 3D object that I printed earlier, we basically have 6 faces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and those 6 faces, when they come together, create that 3D object. But let's just start off by just working with one face right now. So if you remember from last time, we used those standard projection views. We're going to go ahead and set that up right now, and what we are going to do is look at the object we're going to start creating from the top down. So we go over here where it says views, we select that, and then we want to click the one in the middle, which is just the top of the house looking downwards. So we select that one, and we can see instantly that our 3D view right here just becomes this red and green lines. And that blue line that we see, which represents the height of the object, is kind of missing from view. It is still there, but it's basically a line that just goes straight up from the center, kind of pointing out towards the screen towards you. So we can kind of ignore it for right now and just focus on the one surface right here, this one plane. So we go ahead and hit the X button right here, and then we can go ahead and start off by, let's say, moving that cursor icon to the green line right here, and you can see once I move it close to it, it kind of snaps into place and kind of just locks onto that green line right there, and then I can kind of just easily move it back and forth. That allows us to basically start off by making that first point that we're going to make to this line right here connect to that line. Now the key thing when starting off with 3D modeling is just making sure that all our lines are straight or parallel to each other. And I'll just make sure that, like, if we are printing something, we'll get a nice like cube or rectangular prism shape. So what we can do is once we're on that green line, we can just go ahead and click the left mouse button, and then this will start allowing us to draw lines. If you move the cursor away from that point, either to the left or to the right, you can see if you move it without kind of moving the mouse up and down, that line will stay red, and that just basically means it's parallel, or it's basically flat to that red axis down there, which is our x-axis. So we can see if we move it to the right, it's always parallel. But if I start, let's say, moving that mouse button upwards now, that line no longer is red, it changes from red to black. So that line is no longer parallel to there. So a good example is like that. You can see that the red and black lines intersect. Same thing's true if you go to the other side. For our purposes, what we can do is just kind of stretch it out right now, and then we can just make it parallel. You'll also notice that I haven't clicked the other mouse button yet. I just clicked it once, which allows us to basically stay locked into this place right here. I haven't clicked the mouse again. If you do click it a second time, you kind of just snap it into place, and it kind of puts down a point, and those 2 points create a line now, which is represented by this little green dot right there. And we can kind of pick up from over there. And then we can do it again, and then it makes another one. So what we want to do now is, let's say if we want to put a specific length of line down, let's say there's a specific dimension that we want to use. What we can do is, again, right now we're still kind of just stuck in this phase right here where we're still attached to these endpoints right here. We're not able to kind of escape from it. We can go ahead and click it again, and then we can just drag this line out. What we can do is we can go ahead and type in a number right there. So let's say we want to put 1,000 in there. We hit type in 1000, and then we hit enter. And what it'll do, it'll make sure that length that we just typed is 100. So I can do that again, and now if we made this length, let's say 2,000, you can see that number changes in the very bottom down there. Then we hit enter, and then it'll do it for us. It'll make that length exactly 2,000. So now let's say we want to kind of, like, again, like I said, we're kind of stuck in this position right now where no matter what we do, there's always a line trailing behind the red pencil. If we want to kind of use another tool or change something up, what we can do is to get out of that mode, we can just hit escape on the keyboard, and then we can kind of have free reign to move our mouse around without having that line kind of following us. So I'm going to zoom out here for a second. So again, I'm just going to kind of pinch the trackpad over there, and then kind of give us some more room to kind of see what we're working with right now. So next is we want to go ahead and basically create a side that's perpendicular, or it goes to the other side of this right here. So again, we can just go to this little endpoint right here, click it, and then just drag down, and then we can see that green line appears. That means now that green line is parallel to the green line that's on the axis, meaning that the sides of the object that we're going to make are all going to be rectangular. So we can just drag it down, and then as we get close to the red axis right here, we can see, and I just zoomed in right there by pinching the trackpad, we can see that it will get close, and we can kind of just snap it right there, and then we can just pinch out to kind of zoom out again. And then we can just, again, if we were trying to make a rectangle in this case, we can just drag it, the cursor all the way to the point over here, that's the origin, click it again, and then we can just drag it all the way back up to where we started when we first started using this tool, and we can select it. So once you create basically an object that has closed, closed and doesn't have any open points on it, you'll see that it basically connects the lines and then it fills it in. Before it was a kind of a transparent, so it just saw the green background right here, but as soon as we closed the shape, it changed it and it made this, filled it into this grayish color. This basically means it's a closed object, meaning it's a plane or a surface that we can kind of work off of. So we can, again, we can kind of zoom in and kind of just see the shape that we worked with. The other thing that we can do is we can put certain points on the line and create other like shapes within there. So if I just go to any point on here, you can see again the cursor snap to the red axis right here, and we can kind of just draw on top of it and then make a new shape. So now I got a smaller rectangle within the larger rectangle, and then same thing over here. Okay, so in the next video we'll go ahead and go a little bit more into depth on how to make certain points on here to kind of give us more structure to the shape that we're making. And we'll also talk a little bit more about how to use those specific lengths and dimensions.